call this meeting to order then. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you much. Please be seated. Please let the record reflect that all the board members are present, with Brad Tucker participating by telephone. And to start, I'd like to have a moment of silence for the Texas families. Thoughts and prayers go out to the families, school system, community. Are there any visitors present that would like to address the board? No? Okay. We will move on then to consideration to approve the purchase of furniture for the new administration building. I'll turn it over to Mr. Irwin.
Okay. I had sent you in the board packet two separate spreadsheets for a day of bid quote that were turned in. There was a second quote spreadsheet, and that's the one that I've given you an extra copy of to have in front of you, that had some changes on it from some furniture design and layout things that they had to change based on some changes to some windows and to some structural things in those offices. So that one looks a little bit different than what the day of bid quote looks like. So I'll be asking for recommendations. I'll be making recommendations to approve both. But I kind of wanted to walk through a couple of items here on the spreadsheet that I gave you. The original bid came in about a little over $6,000. The day of bid quote came in about $6,000 over the original budget to the furniture, which was $110,000. With the changes that were in the second change order quote, which is the one that's sitting in front of you like that, it's a little bit cheaper because of the changes that they made to the furniture. There are a couple of items in here that we do want to, I want to make the recommendation to change and pull out, because I think that we probably could try to find some different options that maybe are a little bit more cost effective, that don't necessarily necessitate us ordering right now. One of the things that I reminded you of, and part of the reasons that this is here now, is that getting out in front of some pricing increases that were about to happen with some of the furniture, and so us getting approvals in before June allows us to lock in current pricing before their next pricing jump occurs, which is obviously a good move on our part as we spend those community dollars. So there's nothing that I needed to change there on page 1. As you look at some of the tables that are there, again, the yellow is what is the low bid of that particular item that was quoted out. So that's part of the recommendation that's sitting here. Is yellow means that we're recommending that as the low bid for that item. Anything that we'll see in red is things that we've already said no to. There were a couple of items that Dr. Sanders and I felt like were a necessity in the workroom and that we didn't feel like would get used. So there was no point of spending $1,000+ on furniture that we didn't feel like was going to get used. Anything in orange on there were things that we did not receive a bid on. So no one turned in a bid for those items. And so we'll have to contact directly with the manufacturer to try to get a price on that. We didn't get a price yet. One of those items we've been able to get a price on. One at the end we haven't. So I'll just kind of roll through on those pages, but I want to kind of give you an update on the color coding as we roll through it, because obviously there's a lot of things in there and most of it's duplicates. So just kind of bring your attention there. The stuff on page 1 in yellow would stay the same. On page 2, you see that one item in red. That is one that we did not take. I do want to make the recommendation to take out T6, which comes out to a total of $2,247.84. I would like to strike out that yellow recommendation. The other yellow on that page I would like to keep. Page 3, there's no changes from what's there in yellow on the recommendation. That mostly is office furniture there for the different people that are located there in the new admin building. Page 4 would be the same. Everything in yellow would stay as the recommendation. Again, those are office furniture setups. Page 5, those items would stay as recommended. Those 3 items that are in yellow, those are some of the places from the first close of bid date quote to this one. There were some changes, and so those ones come in a little bit cheaper than what they were originally, but those stay as shown on this page in front of you.
So these prices are current?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
On page 6, C1, which is the second yellow line, those were chairs that we had looked at for the boardroom. They came in at almost $1,200 a piece for those chairs, which looked to be a little bit excessive. And so I'm going to recommend that we take off that line, that recommendation for C1 would go away, which is a total of $9,517.60. Moving on to the next page, which is page 7. The last item there on page 7 is the task chairs that we had chosen to go into the offices. That C5 that's in yellow. We would order 8 more of those chairs to replace the 8 that we took away for the boardroom. Those are the same chairs that will be the office chairs in the other office spaces. And so adding that on is, $3,332.24 more than what's sitting there. But in that one changeover, that saves us a little over $6,000. And I'll total up all the different changes as far as what the savings is off the top when we get to the end. So that last item there on C5 would go to 19 of those chairs instead of 11.
About $7,900.
On page 8, both items in yellow, we would like to delete from this change order and not accept those. Again, they seem a little bit excessive. Those are chairs that are a little over $1,200 for just waiting room chairs, which again seems a little bit excessive of some of the funds, and we feel like there's a better use of those dollars that we can put into other places with our projects. And that would go for both of those items.
Are these the ones that you were saying would be in the hallway?
Most of them, yeah, they're in the hallways. We would
Yeah.
still have to purchase
We just think
these
there's
chairs,
cheaper
but get it
alternatives.
cheaper, yeah.
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 That still will look nice, and they're still
Sure.
comfortable and all of that good stuff, but just better use of funds.
Sure.
Page 9, there's already one item that's in red, and that was one of the those were the chairs that we had said would be in the workroom that we had already deleted. The other item that I would like to take off would be C9. And again, we will find an alternative lounge chair for those waiting spaces that meets the needs but is more price effective. The other 2 items that are there on page 9 would stay the same. And again, the piece that is in orange, we still have to go out and find a price on that because we did not get any bids solicited on it, so we need to get a price from the manufacturer, and we'll have to figure that out afterwards, but we'll get that taken care of. With all the changes that I just presented to you, it's a difference of $20,873.77 that would be taken off of the total that's there, which would bring the new total of what you would be approving, which would be $95,413.87. So that would change this change order quote. So we have the day of bid quote that was a little over $116,000. The change order quote that now has all the things that you guys are approving as far as the things that we want to move forward with and with purchasing. And again, all of these dollars are being paid for from the construction bond dollars, from the 2020 construction bond that we already have. It's a part of that project that is furniture for not only the new admin building and boardroom, but also for the transportation maintenance extension that we have now. So with that, we'd like to ask for your approval of those quotes, those bids. With that, I'll take any questions as well.
Do we have a motion?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, and that is for the $95,413 and 87 cents. Make sure the
So my only question
record's
is,
clear.
with our difference here, is that gonna be available for the ones, the stuff that you need to, the other chairs and stuff? Is this difference, we still have that available, correct?
Yeah, so those are funds that we're not gonna spend. We'll go
Okay.
find other options that
Okay.
meet the needs that we'll have to go and procure.
Okay.
Depending on where all that totals out, we may need to come back,
For a little.
at the regular June board meeting and ask for some approvals
Okay.
if it meets that $10,000 threshold.
Okay.
Which it very well probably
Could,
will with
yeah.
all the different items that we've tabled and moved around. So
Okay.
there's a good chance that we'll bring some other items probably in the regular June board meeting or possibly in July. But we'll definitely figure out some furniture for those other spaces, but hopefully a little bit more price effective.
I think some of those items were excessive, couple $1,000s for a lounge chair kind of thing. I think it's important for us to have things that are well-suited, that are sturdy, that will last. But I don't think that we need to go above and beyond that. I think it's important for the community to know that, we're practical with their dollars. And I brought up the board chairs, in particular. I just, it just seems elaborate that for those kind of chairs, and I think that we're not an elaborate community. And those other chairs, since they would be similar to just what everybody else in the office has, they're practical, and so they could be used, throughout the building when there's not meetings as well, so if they needed to be. So I think that's definitely a benefit. So we say the original budget they were trying to go for was $110,000, and it was 116, so taking off that 6, just that one change, brings it into budget so that there's actually, and I think that other 14,000 with, stuffs in the hallways and entryways could go a long way to save several there. So it hopefully collectively would end up being under budget on it.
Anything that we've pulled out that just have to be replaced before the building's ready to go?
There's things in there, we'll definitely want to have some sort of seating for, guests when they come in that maybe need to wait, and some items like that. But it's not anything that's going to keep us from opening up the office because that furniture item didn't come in. And I'm sure there's things that we can find in the interim that will do the job until the right piece of furniture comes in. I know one of the things that we fight is lead times, obviously, on all the furniture. Again, getting it locked in now and getting the PO out and the approvals hopefully gets the time frame where things come in when the project's ready and it's not, the building's done and we don't have any furniture to put in it right away. But we'll find a way to make that work if that ends up being the case as far as the delays and logistics of getting the actual items.
Any other board comments?
No, I just want to say I appreciate, I always appreciate working with the board like this. It helps us to make better decisions. Matt and I met several times with our consultant and tried to find ways to make sure we kept the costs down, but we appreciate the extra eyes, and so we end up making a better decision in the long run, so appreciate the board.
Hey, Dr. Sanders, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I don't know. building to building.
Can you say that again?
The transition on technology from building to building.
Did he say, will the technology transition from building to building? So, yeah, the computers and different things like that our staff is using, most of those will transition over. I think we might have maybe one of them that's maybe due for replacement. We've done some replacement on most of those already here recently in the last year or two. I know we're already looking at new phone systems, so we'll have new phones in there. There's going to be, hopefully I hit some of these wireless data drops and some of the access points and some different pieces like that. There'll be some technology that we'll need to purchase for the boardroom that makes for the, to make sure that we can hear and the setup's right for our meetings or different things that we're hosting in that room, and some different technology needs that will definitely be purchased. But some of the technology that we have will transition with us over to the next building, but there will be things that are already due for upgrade or things that because of the new building, it will be different and hopefully function a lot better than what we have right now.
Okay. All right.
Anything further from the board? With one member participating electronically, we will need to use roll call. So, Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. DeMoss?
Yes.
Mr. Durnall?
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs?
Yes?
And Mr. Kerr is a yes as well, so the motion passes. Our next item is to award the bid for security cameras, and for this, we have Dr. Sanders and Mr. Routon.
Yes, I would just like to introduce this item by kind of going along with what Mr. Kerr said at the beginning of the meeting, that our hearts go out to the school in Texas, and I sent our school community a letter yesterday just assuring our school family what RBB tries to do on a regular basis to keep our students and staff safe, and just outlined a number of just regular activities, regular tasks that we complete to keep everybody safe. And one of those, I believe, is to be able to upgrade our security camera system. And so I'd like to turn it over to Rick, and he's going to explain where we are with that.
Evening. So, as Dr. Sanders mentioned, we're doing an upgrade to our security cameras for the school corporation. And I wanted to say that we submitted our, opened the bids in April, and we received 6 good companies that provided quotes for us and bids, which was really surprising this time of year, and also just the nature of the project. So during that time, we looked at all 6 and we narrowed them down to the 2 that we feel is the lowest bids for the corporation. On those, we took into consideration in the packet of what they were supposed to provide to us. So the 2 lowest bids were Envelope IQ and Presidio Network Solutions Group, LLC, and both are out of Indianapolis. One of the things that we did for our cost analysis was do it on a 5-year cost. That was part of the packet that they were to provide us. And so that just felt like we got a better representation instead of just the lowest bid. How much is it going to cost us for the full 5 years, especially with all the maintenance software licenses? So Envelope IQ proposal was $547,000, $547,335. And Presidio came in at $555,296 over a 5-year total for both. A couple of the things that I would like to mention is that the mandatory walkthrough was a requirement, but we didn't not accept a bid from others that did not show up for mandatory. So that was one of the things that was in here, is that Envelope IQ was not here for the mandatory, but we went ahead and let them bid just because I didn't know how we were going to feel with the bid proposals anyhow. So I want to make sure we had a good round selection committee. Some of the other things that we took into consideration was the pieces of the bid were to include cost of individual components that we could look at to see what the price was if we had to add a camera. We sort of had that in place or in front of us, so we could say, oh yeah, it's going to be this much money based on what they quoted us. There's also, we took into consideration the labor, the repairs, the extended warranties, and when we tallied all this up, the lowest bidder actually is not the winning provider of Envelope IQ. And looking at it, it became Presidio Network Solutions because they are offering they offer 3 years, no extra cost RVB for warranty break fix, which is a really wonderful deal, along with they're doing the Hanwha cameras, which is a majority of our cameras, with providing an additional 5 years limited warranty for repair and replacement because of defects. And then Hanwha is also providing 2.5-year advanced replacements. So that is a large win when you look at the overall number and the budget. So the other thing is that both companies seem to be really well respected in their fields. They both gave a large number of people that they do work with in the K-12 and outside of K-12 also in their documents. But when we looked at the whole thing overall, it just felt like it was the second lowest bidder that really presented everything that we wanted in our requirements, and with the additional break fix and the Hanwha giving a 2.5-year advanced replacement, it really sort of put them over the top edge. So my proposal is that we award the project to Presidio, and I'd be glad to answer any questions. I also, in the packet that we sent you earlier, should have had the complete breakdown from all the vendors that did throw in their bids for us.
Do we have a motion on the Presidio Network Solutions bid of $555,296?
I'd move approval.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, comments?
I appreciate I think it's important that they came and did the walkthrough. I think that is so important that they know what they're getting into. I have more confidence they know what they're bidding on, what we will get.
Yes.
Well, Rick, have you seen the quality of their, I'm sorry, I got the video. Have you seen the quality? I mean,
The picture?
are you going to be able to get a license plate from 75 feet?
As long as they're not doing 110.
Well, the last system was supposed to
They
do
won't
that.
get yours.
It wasn't even close.
Yeah. License, I will tell you from years of experience, with 22 years of experience in working in the security, license plates are very difficult. And especially they're more difficult today because they went to the non-raised license plates. So the flat license plates are much more difficult to read, even when they're stopped in a parking garage. They're just really difficult to read. Unless you have a camera that is going to be set low and really focused on that particular area of the car, we'll do the best we can, but they are very difficult to capture. And like I said, since they went to the non-raised, it's more difficult
Yeah, makes
now.
sense. That
Makes
makes
So-
sense to be able to pick up faces so much better.
Yes, in our design element that we also stated that no camera is to be over 14 feet. So the cameras that you see around our corporation right now, they're a little higher than that. And so we don't get a good view of the person's face or this facial structure. And so we also took some of the cameras that are inside the door. So the cameras that are out today have a really good way to balance the backlight. So when they're approaching the door, we're actually getting them as they're approaching. So we're going to get a full face coverage of what they're doing. And then if they actually break the door, then the next step, we already have them inside where they can't take the camera and destroy it on the outside first. So we have a lot of ways that we took in consideration how we can capture any and all angles of our school. And we do have challenges with a lot of nooks and crannies in our corporation. But I felt that with the walkthrough and all the people that were there, I did ask them, I said, if you see something, please point it out now so we can make sure we get it all covered. And they had some good ideas about a couple things that we did make some modifications to.
We're talking all 4 buildings, right?
All 4 plus the administration, and in this is also the football stadium, or the football field, not stadium.
The computers still have the ability that the police officers can get in our system? Or do they have that ability to?
They will.
Okay.
That's something that I had in mind. This
Yeah.
is something I wanted to do at my other job. This is something that's really critical for our law enforcement to have access to.
Right.
And
I just wanna make
we're
sure
also
that they
building
can
in redundancy so they can do off-site and local.
Perfect, perfect. Okay.
And I do know from Mr. Outen's experience with the city of Bloomington that he worked with security cameras and with law enforcement a lot. So he's had the, oops, this kind of stuff doesn't work. Oops, this stuff is so much better. So his experience in guiding that project, I think is great for the project. We appreciate that.
And so if you go to the new Switchyard Park, those cameras are down there that we designed and put in. So you're protected down there.
Yeah, I just want to thank Rick for all of his hard work, not only in preparing the RFP to go out, but reviewing the bids that came in to make sure we were making the best decision. So, and he did all that on top of all the many other tasks he complete for the school corporation. So I appreciate Rick.
Thank you.
So is there any installation timetable that you know of?
So the best, from what we talked about in our walkthrough and after the meeting, they'll probably start doing the cabling first and have the cameras on order. And there is lead time, like everything else right now with the supply chains that we're hearing about. I'm afraid that we probably won't see some of the cameras being installed until fall, unless they get an early shipment. But at least they can get the interior work done while the students are out. And then basically it'll just be plug, mount, and then focus when we get the cameras physically in place. But I have heard between 4 to 6, and that was about a month ago. So I'm still hoping we're in the 4 to 6 range on the physical hardware, but at least they can come and start doing
4
the
to 6
network drops.
month? Month, 4 to 6 month?
No, 4 to 6 weeks, sorry.
Okay, just making sure.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm thinking months for something else, so yes.
And the funds for this was earmarked with the GO bond, is that correct?
So,
Yeah, the funds will come from 2019 construction bond dollars,
Oh,
and
yes.
then also GO bond dollars. So we'll need both to help make sure that we cover the full cost of it, but it'll come from those two
two.
categories.
yes. And there is additional equipment that we'll be bringing back to you for servers and some network equipment that we as a school entity get a much larger discount than going through these vendors. So we'll be bringing some other requests to you later on as soon as we figure how many servers we're going to need.
Anything further from the board?
That'd be safe.
Yeah,
We get asked for that money that was in arrears, right? We hadn't already had to come back for this.
we had, this money was already allotted for out of the,
Yeah, one of the advertised purposes in the 2019 bond, one of the listed possible projects was security cameras. So that's an allowable use of those funds. And then the GO bond dollars, that's an allowable use for the technology piece here.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything further? Hearing none, by roll call vote. Mrs. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Durno?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Demos?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
And Mr. Kerr is a yes as well. So that passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have consideration to approve an agreement for our 504 plan software. Mr. Irwin.
Yeah, so this is one that Jennifer Anderson had brought to us. Right now, this system, it pairs with the state pays for and provides the system for IEPs and ILPs. And so it's the same system that would go through for 504s as well. And so the reason it comes to you guys for approval isn't because of the cost, but it's because of the agreement that's there in place. And so you guys would be approving the agreement to enter in with them. So we right now have a paper copy, which has not been the most efficient or the best. And so this is just something that we'll be able to move from paper copies to electronic storage system, data collection system, their tracking. And so she had reached out and looked at different vendors for this. They're all within, you know, a pretty tight time range of dollars there. And again, it's well below the threshold, but this backs up to a system that people are already familiar with. So it's not relearning a new software, relearning a new program. And we already know this is something that we use and that, you know, people know what's going on with it. So there won't be a bunch of relearn time on it as well. So it fits nicely, and hopefully it will be something that people will appreciate as they work through that 504 documentation and data tracking. So with that, I'm asking for your guys' approval.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on the 504 plan agreement? Hearing none, by roll call, Mr. Tucker?
Can you hear us, Brad?
Yes.
Yeah, that we've had a motion and a second to approve the agreement for the 504 plan software. And so it's been called for a vote. And so Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. DeMoss?
Yes.
Mr. Durnall?
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kerr is also a yes, so that motion passes by a vote. And now we have consideration to approve the overnight trip for the wrestling team. Dr. Sanders?
Yes, this is just an annual trip that they take, a team building trip. The students participate in a fundraiser to pay for the cost for the trip. So I think that's pretty cool. It's a mulch that they, I don't know if
It's on my
they.
yard.
Okay, yeah. So I know it's a lot of hard work for them, but these team building overnight trips are very important. I've heard many coaches, not even coaches, but choir directors talk, band directors who talk about that their whole season really builds off of that time. So I would recommend your approval.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on the overnight trip for the wrestling team?
For them to work as a team, and it's exciting to me.
I want to go holiday world with them.
Okay. All right then. Mrs. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Durnall?
Yes.
Mr. DeMoss?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
And Mr. Kerr is a yes as well. Motion passes. Are there any board members who'd like to make any comments this evening? This afternoon?
No, this is exciting. Everything that we're doing, I'm very excited about it.
Yes, ma'am. Me as well. Me as well. Okay then. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Have a wonderful day.